Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Orange Report with Kira Davis. I am your host, Kira Davis, and you can follow me right here on X. We are live. We go live on X Monday through Wednesday, and then we do our Friday wrap-up show. You can follow me on X at Kira Davis, Kira Davis, and follow the Orange Report at Orange Report OC. We're Orange Report OC everywhere. You can follow us on Facebook. That we also stream live to there. And we're very happy to have you here. We've got a lot of stuff to talk about this week. California wise, it just feels like California is feels like California is the news cycle right now. So we have got a lot going on here. Chris Rufro over at City Journal writing for Manhattan Institute. A scathing report today. Scathing report. We're going to talk about that, about what the state is funding here in California. I know no one is surprised anymore, but we should not pretend that it's just normal. You know, we should be shocked by it. We should be upset by it. It pushes back a little. And we should be telling people about it. I think a lot of people assume, well, we all know how crazy California is. No, we don't. A lot of you don't know how crazy California is. We have to name, shame, and blame. So we've got that story coming up. Happy tax day. It's tax day. Everybody get your taxes in. I haven't. I always file for an extension. Taxation is theft, and California is full of thieves. I just want to reiterate that things in this country would look a lot different if we forced Americans to pay all their taxes on one day. We should not take taxes out of people's paychecks in increments. It makes it too easy. It makes it too easy to ignore. I just want to say, I don't know what the possibilities of that ever happening are, but I just want to say it out loud. It doesn't have to be that way. It's not necessary to be that way. And if people were responsible for saving their own money to pay their own taxes at the end of every year, they would think differently about what those taxes are. It's a lot different when you're paying $7 a paycheck as opposed to getting a bill for $800 at the end of the year. When you're a struggling single parent or a college student, and then, multiply that by umpteen as you move into each higher bracket. The country would look a lot different if we had. I also think the country would look a lot different if we had a requirement that only taxpayers could vote. You have to be on record as having paid income taxes or property taxes during the year. I don't know what the constitutional viability of that is. I don't know. We're looking at having candidate for Attorney General Michael Gates back on the show next week. So maybe I'll ask him, if I'll poke that legal brain and see if he has any comments on that. I don't know. I'm not a constitutional lawyer, everybody. I don't know if y'all knew that or not. But it seems to me like a lot would change and a lot could change. A lot is changing these days. And one of those changes has come in the California governor's race. New polling is out. Let's go to number 5, Scott. New polling is out. Steve Hilton is heading to the top of the polls. He has shot up to the top of the polls post-Trump endorsement. This was the poll we were waiting for. Post-Trump endorsement, because everybody, we talked about it last week on the show too, everybody was nervous about, not everybody, I was not nervous about it, but we see, Steve, this is an impact research poll. Steve Hilton now polling at 25%, Tom Steyer at 16%. This is post Eric Swalwell. Katie Porter, 14, Matt, 8. Excuse me, it's not post Eric Swalwell. This was done before Eric Swalwell. They just pulled him out. So it's going to change again, regardless. And then Bianco is polling underneath that, I think at 8%. I think he's right at parity with Matt Mahan in that poll. Let's go to number 6, Scott, because this is a real clear politics average poll, the average polling, which is what a lot of pundits look at. And this was the pre-Trump endorsement. So what you just saw is post-Trump endorsement. As you can see, it did not harm Hilton at all. In fact, it helped as we imagined that it would. So even before the Trump endorsement, here's Hilton, real clear average, 15.5%, Steyer at 13, Swalwell 12, Bianco down there at 11, just over ahead of Katie Porter. The next closest loser is Villaraigosa, Tony Villar, former mayor of Los Angeles. The very definition of an empty suit. Like, lights are on, no one's home. Tony's just a weirdo. Anyway, that speaks a lot to Hilton and, how he's doing in this race. Because even before the Trump endorsement, he was pulling towards the top. And again, you can go back and you can see my clips. You can watch that show. But a lot of people were saying, well, Trump is giving Chad Bianco a leg up because that's not going to fly in California. And I just want to tell people, nobody really understands what it's like here in California, except for us Californians. And I can tell you, as somebody who lived outside of California and has been a resident now for almost 20 years, I've raised my family here, but came here as an outsider. And I can tell you that you do not have a clue how California politics works if you are not in the state. It is so weird. It is so odd. And a lot of it operates on cheating and vibes. So the cheating, we're limited in how we can solve the cheating for now. But we do have some options, and those options are being exercised. This is going to be a midterm election, which means that it will be a federal election. And Trump has promised to send both observers and ICE to the polling stations. That's going to make a huge difference for us. We're still going to have to deal with the mail-in ballot, but mail-in voting. But we have a lot more. There's been purging of the voter rolls happening in California for the last 2 years. You don't hear a lot of reports about that. We've purged over 700,000 names from our voter rolls. That is going to have an impact as well. And listen, the deportations are going to have an impact. These are things we're not talking about because they can't be drilled down on right now. Sort of physically speaking, you don't have numbers to put in front of you. We don't have data to put in front of us. Data. What do you say? I have always been awkward about this word. Is it data or is it data? Scott, what do you say? Data or data? Data. Data to me is the android in Star Trek Next Generation. That's such a nerd. Data is the numbers and stuff that you get. But we don't have a lot, but we go on vibes a lot. And I will tell you, here in California, depending on what side of the fence you're on, the vibes are not good or they're great. People are sick and tired of stuff. The LA fires, I don't think Americans can truly understand the impact that had on the entire state, on the psyche of this entire state. It shifted everything. And proof of that is that Spencer Pratt is running neck and neck with the next challenger for Los Angeles mayor. And again, a lot of the polling you see, they're still cheating in the pollings because the people that they're polling aren't registered voters, aren't legal voters. So it's a very strange situation here. It's more fluid than people think. We are a super blue state. We are a Democrat supermajority state, but we haven't always been. And we've done it before where Republicans took this state back from Democrats. I don't know why people think we can't do it again, especially in this day and age. And again, this isn't what I was going to talk about today, but I just do not understand people who think that Donald Trump is a detriment to a political career or that a Trump endorsement is a death knell. Opposite. He is the leader of our party. He is the leader of the United States, the duly elected leader, the overwhelmingly elected leader of the United States, and he's the leader of the free world. Anybody who thinks that a Trump endorsement is a bad thing isn't paying attention, or you're so caught up in Trump derangement. You don't understand the power of Trump. You don't understand the power of that personality. So it's certainly something to think about, but I don't think it's, well, I know now because we're seeing the polls, it's not a detriment. People trust Trump. And I don't care what the polls say about Iran, or I don't care what the polls say about immigration or the border. People trust him, and that's showing up in the polls. So any Republicans that are running away from a Trump endorsement, they're cowards. You're a coward if you run away from a Trump endorsement. And I don't want you in the party because you don't know what's good for the party. You don't get it. You should now. There are some candidates who are running in split districts, and their districts are very liberal, especially after the redistricting. That's what it was all about. And so they might want to take a more centrist line when they're talking about that. But I haven't seen a candidate yet here in California when speaking to a crowd say, "No, I don't want the Trump endorsement." At the very least, they'll say, yes, I will take a Trump endorsement, but I don't need it because I'm running on XYZ. It's sort of the middle of the road approach. But I think people with sense recognize that a Trump endorsement makes sense. And I don't care what Chad Bianco supporters say. His team was hoping for that endorsement. They did want it. They were actively seeking it. So, I mean, it's just a lot of cope, to say afterwards, oh, Trump really helped the Bianco campaign by endorsing Steve. That's not what they were going to say if Trump endorsed Chad. Let's just be real about it. But so for now, Chad has slipped in the polling for now to the single digits. However, we are going to see this candidate field, this Democrat candidate field, condense some more. I think that the people at the bottom, the losers at the bottom, are probably holding out for appointments, cabinet positions, that kind of stuff. That's a pretty common thing. But there's no way that like a Tony Thurmond is going to stay in, or Betty Yee. Eventually, they're going to get paid off or bribed off, with an appointment, especially if Steyer is, and it looks like he is going to be the lead. He's got unlimited funds. So, and then maybe we will see Chad come up in the polls. I don't see how he comes up in the polls enough to pull off a top 2 over Steyer. It doesn't even make sense. The top polling Republican is Steve Hilton. Whether you like him or not, it's Steve Hilton. Maybe Chad, if Steve dropped out, maybe he could get to the top, but I don't even believe that. I don't think that. I think it would just be another Democrat. So I continue to rest on my assertion that Steve Hilton is the best option moving forward. And if Chad Bianco drops out, we will be guaranteed at least one Republican going through. If Chad Bianco stays in, it's looking less and less likely that any Republican will go through. But we'll see. I'm definitely biased. I say it all the time. So, but let's talk while we're still on this topic real briefly about Steve Hilton. He is not in our voter guide. Our voter guides went out last week, and some Republicans were concerned because they didn't see the Steve Hilton campaign's statement, governor's statement in there. Your candidate statement, you pay for that to go in the voter guide. It's very expensive here in California. Very expensive. I was telling my son that I had to it was thousands of dollars when I was running for school board just to have a candidate statement in there. And when you're running a campaign, on like a $30,000 to $50,000 budget, I ended up raising closer to 100, but $30,000 to $50,000 budget, yeah, that's a lot. And then we have campaign reporting law here in California, and we have fundraising laws, and they're very complicated. It's just ridiculous. And so there's a certain date that every candidate must spend their money by before primaries and then before generals. You have to spend all of your ad money, so you have to secure all your ads, and you can't spend more money after that. You have to secure all of your candidate statements, all of that. The Hilton campaign felt that it would be more, that they didn't need the ballot statement, that people don't really read the candidate statements in the voter guides. It was something like $11,000 or $13,000, a lot of money. And I know and people keep putting me on text threads or they want to talk about this stuff, but I've heard people say that accuse Hilton of having unlimited amounts of money. And I think they think that just because he's a guy from the tech sector, he's a rich guy from the tech sector. But that is not true. I work with the Hilton campaign, or at least consult with them. And Steve's been a long time friend. He doesn't have unlimited money. The campaign does not have unlimited money. They have a lot of money because Steve is killing it in fundraising, right? They have good donors. They have a great donor base, and they have a great small dollar donation base too. But it is not unlimited. That's a fantasy, right? You want to fantasize that he is like a Democrat candidate. He is not. Democrats have unlimited money because they're using your money. It's just they're using tax dollars. So the proof is in the pudding, my friends. The proof to what I'm saying is in the pudding. He didn't put a candidate statement in the voter guide because he did not want to waste the money. He thought his campaign made the calculation that they didn't need the candidate statement in the voter guide, that money would be best used going towards ad dollars or campaign, merch or whatever they're putting it towards. I don't know. I'm not that involved in the campaign. So, but yeah, it's a I didn't even know it was a thing that you could do, to be honest. I really didn't know. And a lot of people were like, oh no, is he not going to be on the ballot? Steve Hilton, yes, he will be on the ballot. He is on the ballot. He just chose not to pay the $11,000 or $13,000 to put a statement in the ballot. And I forgot to bring my ballot here with me, but I'll my voter guide, excuse me, but I'll show it to you on the next show. I mean, I think there's 20 candidate statements in there for governor alone. And I think there's a total of 60 registered filed for the governor's race. So, it's a lot. And I don't know if it was a bad calculation, because there's just a lot of people to sift through before you would get to a Hilton statement. And what is the point? So that's what's going on with Hilton. If you're worried, if you're in California and you got your voter guide and you didn't see a candidate statement from Steve Hilton, that was a calculation the campaign made. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. He's topping all the polling. He hasn't stopped topping the polling. Do you know what I mean? I am perplexed at this argument between Bianco and Hilton. I am perplexed about it. Now, I know a lot of people who are saying, well, Kira, we could have 2 Republicans go through. I think that's a fantasy, but that's a more, I think that is a more friendly fantasy. You know what I mean? Like, great, I'll engage in that delusion with you. I would like that too. I'm not saying I don't want that. I would like that too. And it's not a bad fantasy to indulge in. But the fantasy, I do think it is a fantasy to suppose that no Democrat is going to drop out, and that Chad it has the juice to beat Steve Hilton, and therefore Steve Hilton must drop out. It's ridiculous. When I hear people saying that, that's ridiculous. And the delegate vote at the convention is not, I mean, he got 49% of that. He didn't even crack 50, and you need 60. And Steve got 46. So it's not enough. You know what I mean? It's not enough. I am totally perplexed by the arguing over this, by how passionate people are about it. I feel like if you look at it logically, you can see someone like me why I might have this position. Again, if you're hopeful and you think, oh, well, we could get 2 Republicans to poke through, great. Okay, I'm going to hope for that too. What I think is ridiculous is to suppose that Steve Hilton's the one that should have to drop out. That makes no sense to me, just logically speaking. All right, well, let's talk about some more illogic. I want to get to this article. You can put up 2, Scott, but I'm going to start reading this article, and then you can move to 3. From Chris Rufro over at City Journal. City Journal is a wing of the Manhattan Institute. They are an incredible investigative website, and they operate a lot in New York. But like many outlets, the Manhattan Institute has decided to focus on California as well, because we got a lot of news here. And so Chris Rufro has been a rock star exposing DEI and CRT stuff. He's moved here to California to cover this. And he has uncovered that California provides sex change procedures to homeless illegal aliens. And you're going to see on the screen, they're interviewing. This is a homeless man who had a breast augmentation paid for by the state. He's on the list for housing. He is homeless. He's on the list for shelter. And the state paid for what they call top surgery, breast augmentation. And he says he's on the list to wait for bottom surgery from the state. Okay, let me read. Last month, we received a report. This is from Chris Rufro and Jonathan Cho at City Journal. We received a report from a whistleblower who claimed that illegal aliens were staying in San Francisco homeless shelters. Following up on the tip, we visited numerous publicly funded shelters in San Francisco and spoke to employees and residents about their policies, sometimes through a translator. There is no, you know what? There isn't a single public service in America that should use a translator. If you can't speak English, you should not receive any public help. That might sound harsh, but that's the way it used to be because that's a part of assimilation, right? If you want the benefits of our country, if you want the benefits of our state, of our taxpayers, you need to speak the language in order to receive those benefits. So you and we can have clear communication about what your needs are and how they can be addressed. Absolutely absurd. And then the state has to hire translators. Another absurdity. We discovered not only that the shelters were housing illegal immigrants, but also that they were apparently housing a population of male to female transgender illegal aliens who had hoped to obtain gender affirming care. And to our shock, the state and local governments apparently are providing it. St. Vincent de Paul's MSC South facility is San Francisco's largest homeless shelter, and in 2024 signed a $66 million contract with the city. $66 million. I feel like I could solve all of homelessness in all of California with $66 million. I could do it in a year. $66 million. After we arrived at the front entrance, an employee wearing a do-rag and a light green polo shirt showed us around and confirmed the illegal aliens were living there. You got a few people here from El Salvador. You got some people here from Venezuela. You have a few people from a little bit of everywhere, he said. As a rule, he suggested management instructed employees to refuse cooperation with federal immigration authorities. When the ICE thing was going around, we all had a meeting and they told us we ain't letting them in. $66 million of your money, my friends, taxpayer money. It's tax day. It's tax day. Some of you, many of you, most of you are looking at your filings and going, holy crap, what did I get for this? This feels like thievery. This feels like theft. I want you to make that correlation. That money that you saw come out of your check today, or you saw that number, that's where it went. $66 million to a homeless shelter that provides shelter and sex changes for illegal immigrants. Among the shelter's residents was a group of Hondurans who identified as transgender. During our visit to MSC South, whose executive director did not respond to our request for comment, gee whiz, we spoke to two Honduran men, Laika and Alondra, who were identified as transgendered women. Both indicated the government gave them shelter and food. I'll tell you what, you can tell that the trans thing is a mental disease by the names they choose for themselves. And every woman, every sane woman, because there are some women out there who just want to be approved of by men. They call themselves feminists, but they latch on to the transgender thing because they're still seeking approval from men. They're so weak and broken and so desperate for love that that's their version of getting approval from men. But most sane women understand that these men are not real. These men are not, of course, they're not women. Of course, they're not. Everything about them is anti-woman, including the names they choose for themselves. They're always stripper names, right? Leica, Candy. All of the names they choose are almost to a person ridiculous, but especially the ones that go so far as to have surgery, because that's, what do they call it? Autophilia. because that's a sexual dysfunction. That is a man. He's still straight, by the way. That is a man who enjoys the looking at a female version of himself. It's sexually arousing. On the female side, the women who try to transition to men, pretend that they can do that, they pick a lot of the same names. You'll see a lot of Finns. Zero is a popular name, which I find deeply disturbing. I don't know how many zeros. We did a report on this show on Trevor Space, which is an LGBTQ I don't know, support, education, and social media or organization that is now embedded in our California schools. You can go back and find that report. But I went to Trevor Space and I looked at some of their chat rooms, and they have hundreds that you can join, and they're for kids, and they have thousands. They're all LGBTQ, and in every single one, there are multiple young women claiming they're young men called Zero. And I actually open an account, and I had to choose a name. And so I knew that a lot of the young trans women choose the name Zero. So I typed in Zero. And do you know that there was like 1,200 zeros on there? I think it is a reflection of how these young women feel about themselves. And I think the names that the men choose is another reflection. The other name, Finn, they'll use like Shakespearean names as well. But names that indicate stunted childhood, perpetual childhood. It's very odd. It's very, very odd, cultish, in fact. I don't know. It's just an observation that I've made. Leica, who wore long hair and red lipstick, was candid about this arrangement. He confirmed he was an illegal immigrant, and the shelter doesn't ask questions about immigration status. Tengo Medical, he said, referring to the state health care program, which under Governor Gavin Newsom began providing full scope coverage to illegal aliens, which includes transgender procedures, gender affirming care. He said he was receiving a cross-sex hormone therapy and bore the physical signs of having done so. Medi-Cal has something like an almost $1 trillion funding liability. If you are when I tell you that illegal immigration affects everything, it is not just about your paycheck. It is not just about your taxes, and it's not just about your bathrooms. When I tell you it affects everything. If you have ever had to use the California healthcare system for anything, you have had to go and wade through a sea of illegal immigrants log jamming your emergency services, log jamming surgery, log jamming healthcare. You can't get in to see your pediatrician. I used to be able to get in to see my gynecologist in a week. Now it's 2 months. That's illegal aliens doing that. They're creating a log jam. Now think of this guy is getting fake boobs and quote, he's going to get castrated and the government's going to pay for it. And you can't get, if you're on Medi-Cal, you can't get your open heart surgery. You can't get your cancer treatment. You're waiting in line for your MRIs. You can't go to the emergency room without waiting there 8, 9, 10 hours. And this guy who doesn't have a home or a green card or any good sense is pushed to the front of the line, and he's getting your dollars to have breast implants and be castrated because he has a sexual fetish. This is not just ridiculous. It's evil, and it's evil on purpose. This is not an accident, and this is not the unintended consequences of a good law. This is evil. This is our government on purpose trying to dispirit you as a taxpayer, trying to elevate something evil, gender transition, and call it good, and call it so good that it takes precedence above every other type of health care. Takes precedence above you having a baby, you getting your cancer treatment, you getting, your yearly exams, you getting emergency services. It takes precedence over everything. $66 million this shelter got to house this man. What are you paying rent? What's your mortgage? What's your future housing possibilities? look like. Get mad. Get angry. It's not just disgusting. It's evil. This is an absolute plan to replace you. All right, I'm not going to read. Let's see. Alondra, a muscular man in a camouflage shirt and dyed hair tied behind his head, said he'd been in the U.S. after claiming asylum. According to the translator, the city government had offered to pay first and second month's rent on private apartments for him and Leica, but neither accepted the offer in Leica's case because he might not be able to pay for the apartment after the second month. Just stop it there, Scott. How many of you would gladly take the state paying your first and second month's rent to get a jump start on a decent apartment in a decent area? It's not just absurd. It's evil. It's evil on purpose. The purpose is to make you feel like what you do is pointless, to make you feel like what you do is worthless, to make you feel like your complaints don't matter. It's to make you give up, to just be a cog in the wheel, go to work, hope the government leaves you alone, and give everybody else your money. And you'll be too dispirited and too broken and too hurt and too tired to cause a fuss or to go out there to change things. And you know what? It's been working. It's been working. But we have a unique opportunity here. People are angry. I need you to get angrier, though. I need you to start sharing these stories, telling these stories. As far as I'm concerned, every conservative outlet should have a California bureau right now. And I don't know why they don't. You should have a bureau here in California. This is where it all begins and ends, right here. If we fix California, we'll fix the rest of America. We're exporting all of this. If we fix California, we will fix this country. I don't know why some of these major conservative outlets don't have, but I'm available. I work for myself right now, so I'm available for hire. You know, there are great people out there. Amy Reichart could maybe poach some other folks from who are writing locally. There are people here to do the work. There's no excuse for a conservative outlet not to have a bureau here right now because the news is on. And all right, let's go to, okay, I do want to talk about this before we leave today. Let's do number 4. Katie Grimes is in, Katie Grimes is a rock star. If you don't follow Katie Grimes, follow her on X. She is one of the best reporters in California, has been for a long time, works for the California Globe. If you work in this business, you want to be a Katie Grimes for sure. She's covering this bill, what's being called the Nick Shirley bill. You can imagine what that is. Here in California, again, this is why California news matters. Why aren't you out here, conservative outlets? What are you doing? This matters because this matters to you. If this passes in California and you don't think this is coming to a state near you, California Democrats violate First Amendment to criminalize investigative journalism. Independent news media serves the public by exposing abuses of power, corruption, waste, or incompetence that officials might try to hide. On Monday, the Globe reported California Democrats were trying to pass this bill. They want to criminalize investigative journalists for violating privacy for immigration support service providers. They should say illegal immigration. That's what Katie says. California Assemblyman Carl DeMaio is slamming state Democrats for voting to advance a controversial new law, Assembly Bill 2624 by Assemblywoman Mia Bonta, to silence citizen journalists and shield taxpayer-funded organizations from public scrutiny. AB 2624 is perhaps the most egregious violation of the First Amendment I've seen in Sacramento, and this is Katie Grimes reporting, and I have had firsthand experience with the California legislature violating the First Amendment after having my Capitol Press credentials revoked because Democrats didn't like what I was reporting. My attorneys and I filed an administrative appeal and won the press credentials back easily. And then she goes on to review the First Amendment. Again, this is not just absurd. This is evil. This is, we cannot continue in a state like this. We cannot continue in California like this without violence erupting. Because at what point do you have a banana republic? At what point do you don't have a Democratic government? You don't have a Republican government. And I don't mean big R Republican. I mean a government in a republic. At some point, there has to be, what do? You can't even use the law to fix, there has to be armed revolution at some point. I feel like we're getting to this point, unless we can wrestle back the government, because what other option do you have? This is absurdly illegal, and such a bill is absurdly illegal. Now, if you're not from California, you're not going to recognize the name I read, Mia Bonta. Mia Bonta is an assemblywoman. Her husband is Rob Bonta. Rob Bonta is the California Attorney General. Rob Bonta is the guy who's been suing parents up and down the state for the audacity to demand that we know what our kids are learning in school, for the audacity to demand that we know when our kids are trying to change their gender or seek gender affirming care in school and it's being kept secret from us. He's suing us. We're winning every one because, of course, that's unconstitutional. We're winning all those cases, but Rob Bonta is suing the school district and parents privately. The AG, the Attorney General, is suing his own citizens. This is how crazy it is here. And his wife sits in the California Assembly. And she just introduced a law. The wife of the California Attorney General just introduced a law to make it illegal for investigative reporters to report on fraud. That's basically what it is. What they want is basically what it is to shield. What they want to do is to shield services that provide for illegal immigrants, to shield them from having to offer any identifying details, names, addresses. How do you even report without that kind of stuff? I mean, not the reporters, but even the authorities. How do you even collect reporting without that? These are public services provided for with public tax dollars, and they want to introduce a bill to make it illegal for the public to know where these services are located and who the services are going to. The California Attorney General, who is supposed to be the one investigating fraud, is the one supporting this. Nick Shirley comes in and blows the lid on almost $1 trillion. We're gonna pull up on $1 trillion of fraud here in California. We will. Some of these people have $200 to $500 million a person of fraud on their records, and we haven't seen all of it. We're gonna pull up on $1 trillion. So Nick Shirley, he releases, he unleashes the hounds. Suddenly everyone's interested. CBS comes and is doing reports here in California. And the governor, how does the governor respond? The governor and his crack team, his crack comms team over there, they respond by suggesting that Nick Shirley is a pedophile. They respond with memes about Nick Shirley. Not the fraud. Not a comment, not a whisper about the massive fraud. Now, when they got called out for that, suddenly his comms team is going, oh, Gavin Newsom has been rooting out fraud forever. Really? Then how is there so much here to find? And then the response to a kid, a young American kid with a camera, self-funded, self-motivated, really living the American dream, using the American dream. A young kid who is serving the taxpayers by uncovering injustice in the use of their dollars. Their response isn't, this is an elected government in America. This is an elected government in America. The response is not, oh my gosh, we really dropped the ball. We're going to investigate this too. Even if they don't really mean it, just to make it look like, we're going to investigate this too. Thank you, Nick Shirley. Come, let's give you a key to the city. Let's give you an award. Thank you for no. Their response is to make it harder for investigative reporters to uncover fraud. Gee whiz, why? It's evil. Evil runs Sacramento right now, and we got to make a serious play for it. That's why I don't have much patience for this Chad and Steve talk. For this, like, let's just do what's logical because we got one shot at this. I'm not sure what happens. I know a lot of people are going to leave if we don't come out with some kind of victory here in November. I know a lot of folks are going to leave. Your grandkids, your kids, they're going to leave. When you hear me running down the Bianco campaign, it is not personal. It is not because it's because I don't want my kids to leave. I don't want your grandchildren to leave. That's all it is. All right. It's not ego. I want your grandchildren to stay here and grow up here and own a home here. And a lot of them are going to leave, aren't they? If we don't win in November, we got to do the thing that's going to help us win, not the thing that's going to help us feel the best about our own choices. We have to do what is going to help us win. This is evil. They take your tax dollars, they lie about where it's going, and then when we figure out where it's going, they call you the liar for figuring it out. They call you the terrible person for figuring it out and demanding accountability. This is very serious. And this is if it passes, it's not going to pass muster, right? We're going to sue the pants off them. But the fact that they would even introduce it and the fact that they think they can introduce it and get away with it, that just shows you how entrenched they are. That just shows you how arrogant they are. I saw Steve Hilton on some show yesterday, and he was talking about Swalwell, and he was saying, it's just a sign of the massive arrogance of Eric Swalwell that he thought this was never going to come to fruition. This was never going to come out. And Megyn Kelly had Steve on yesterday, and I saw a clip from her. She said, look, it's because of you, Steve, because they knew that they could get Eric through the primaries and no one would care about this stuff. What they didn't know was that the Republicans were going to come on so strong. And then they realized if we let Eric go through to the generals and he's running against a Republican, all that stuff is coming out and he is toast. He is tanked. So we'll have to see if Steyer has any, prostitutes or underage stories in his past. We'll see. Jury's out. But he is surging and he does have a lot of money and he does have endless funds. That is going to be a challenge. Another reason why I think the Hilton campaign is really smart. They did not take that financial hit for the ballot because they know their funds are limited and they need to save money for the voter guide. He is on the ballot for the voter guide because they know they're going to need every red cent. All right. I don't have too much more to say today. I'm going to kick this. So I want you to tell me what you think about these new polling numbers coming out about Chad, Steve, how you think that shakes up. What do you think the odds are that two are going to push through now that the race is really condensed and it looks like Steyer has taken almost all of Eric Swalwell's support? How are you feeling about that? Drop your opinions in the comments. How are you feeling about, what I said about the possibilities of that? You can be honest with me. I don't mind, but I feel very good about where I stand on this. I think I'm in the right. I think I'm doing the right thing here for California. And I want to encourage you to join me because victory is going to be really sweet. Victory is going to be really sweet. What else do I want to tell you? Follow us everywhere. Orange Report OC across the board. And of course, here on X, I am Kira Davis. Follow me. Again, we're hopefully going to get Attorney General candidate Michael Gates on the show. It's also here from Orange County. And this is one of the reasons why we like him so much on this show. He's an Orange County boy, Huntington Beach boy. Definitely has had a lot of battles with these things that we are talking about right now, but he is running against Rob Bonta, right? The husband of Mia Bonta, who has proposed this law against investigative journalism. So I'm really curious to see what he might have to say about that. And then we've got a couple of other local stories we're working on for next week. Some developments coming up here in Orange County that you're probably going to want to be concerned about. And as always, I want to encourage everybody, get thee to a meeting. I don't care what kind of meeting it is. It's a meeting of your local GOP club, a meeting of your city council, your school board, the water district, the library board. Pick one and go. Just one. Pick one and go. Your life will change. Your life will change. I promise you. All right. I'm Kira Davis sitting in for the Orange Report. This has been the Orange Report. Don't forget that sunlight is the best disinfectant. So bring on the sunlight. Let's go.